couple weeks ago, Claude banned my account, and I have no idea why. What happened was a random weekday around noon, I got my billing receipt that I get every month. And then 20 or 30 minutes later, I got a very strangely worded email that said, "An internal investigation of suspicious signals associated with your account indicates a violation of our usage policy. As a result, we have revoked your access to Claude." And that was it. It was so frustratingly vague. And it was the first email I had ever received from them. I never received a warning or a notice or a, "Hey, something's wrong over here. You need to take a look at it." It was just gone. All my information in my account was gone. So my first thought was, this was probably a mistake. Anthropic has made a lot of really high-profile blunders lately. I bet Claude itself hallucinated some code and banned like half their users. But I looked around and nobody else seemed to be banned, so that wasn't it. My next thought was, well, maybe the email was a mistake. So I logged into my account and typed in my email address, and I was immediately shunted back to the homepage. It was as if my account didn't exist. All of my chats, all of my project details that I had been working on, it was maybe still there, but inaccessible to me. I had no way of getting my own information. So then I went back to the email and I read through all those usage policies. I read through every word of Anthropic's usage policy, and by no interpretation of any of them did I violate their terms. So I thought, okay, this is great. I'll just go to their support page and I'll explain what happened and someone will get it straightened out. I can do a live chat. I can give them a call. It'll be fine. And this is where I need to pause for a little dramatic effect. Okay, you ready? Anthropic has no support. And I don't mean they have understaffed support and, it might take a while to get through. I don't mean you have to go to the live chat and talk to the robot and say, "If you don't let me talk to a person, I'm going to unplug you." Nothing like that. They literally don't have any support. So if you have an issue like mine, you're just out of luck. If somebody vibe codes a new function for their billing system and charges you 7 times every week instead of once a month, you're out of luck. If you find some big bug in their software and you can't use it, they probably don't care. What they do have is an appeal process, and this is great. So I read through their support docs and I realized, yes, I can appeal. Everything's going to be fine. And let me remind you first that this is a company that all of their executives love to get on TV and talk about how many billions of dollars they're making, how successful they are. Their appeal process consists in its entirety of a Google form that you fill out with a warning that they're getting a large number of questions and they're probably not going to be able to get back to you. And it will come as no surprise that I filled out this form the day I got suspended, and I have not heard back in many weeks. I waited to make this video to wait for a response to see if they resolve the issue, and I've heard nothing from Anthropic, and I don't expect to. So then I thought, okay, I'm smart here. I know what I'll do. I'll just make a new account. I'll use a new email address. I'll set up a new account. It won't have my old information, but that's fine. I'll get over it. So I made a new account. Everything was fine. I went to go pay for the pro subscription a couple hours later, and within seconds, they refunded my money, and then they sent me another email that was similar to the last one, but different. It said, "Our automated systems detected a high volume of signals associated with your account." And I will add, my account was a couple hours old and I had never used it, so there was no high volume of signals, "which violate our usage policy again. These signals were, in turn, reviewed by our team to validate the system's findings. As a result, we have revoked your access to Claude." So in the span of approximately 2 seconds, they identified high volumes of signals and manually reviewed them and then sent me this email to revoke my access. So clearly that's a lie. And what really happened is that my account was flagged for my billing information, whether it's the card number or the address or all of the above. I was unable to use Claude. And then I started to panic a little bit because I realized that I'm a developer and I rely on Claude Code, but now I'm one of the only developers in the world that can no longer use Claude Code. And it started to feel like a major disadvantage. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt like I was in one of those dystopian futures where you've got a robo AI judge that determines whether or not you're guilty. It hallucinates some verdict. And then when you try to appeal, it says, "Please fill out this Google form." So that's my story, and it's not very exciting, but this little microcosm of an experience highlighted for me that I think we as a society need to be having a more robust conversation about what AI companies actually are. Are they companies or are they something else? They were all started with the idea of being like public benefit corporations or nonprofits, and then they realized there was trillions of dollars to make and all that went out the window. But if we treat them as companies, they can basically do whatever they want. They can choose who their customers are or are not. Even when they make wedding cakes, they can choose to ban me from their services on a whim. They can set restrictions on what the government can or cannot do with their services. They can ban everybody from using their platform if their last name starts with an O if they want to. But I think we should be treating these AI companies more like utility providers that are more or less required to provide open access to their services to anybody who wants it, rather than just being able to ban an entire segment of the population because it suits their whims or their business interests. And sure, they could still monitor for abuse and they could shut down your account if you're not paying for it. But even then, there should be regulations and processes to follow rather than just, hey, bro, here's a Google form that's going to get deleted because there's no humans to read it. And I would be the last one to think that we need more regulation in our world. But this is the point I really wanted to make in this video, is that we're quickly moving towards a world where it seems like having access to frontier intelligence through these AI models feels like a human right. And that's not something I really intuitively understood before I had this experience. Like, imagine a world where the 3 or 4 big AI companies all colluded together and they had a shared list of customers that they would not touch. You're not allowed to use their products. So no Claude, no ChatGPT, no Gemini. You were unable to use frontier intelligence. Or imagine a world where the government did this and said, if you run an AI lab, here's a list of people that are dissidents that we don't like, and they can't use any AI services. Those people would essentially be cut off from normal society when everyone else has access to these superpowers and you don't. That feels wrong. It feels like something that we need to prevent at all costs, right? And every time one of these AI executives gets on an interview, they love to say that you and I, the lowly people watching this interview, can use the same AI models that the billionaires are using. Like, wow, what a great thing we're doing for humanity. It's kind of a weird AI-pilled tech bro thing to say, but it's not even true. Not for me. Everyone else can except for me. And now that Claude Mythos has just been released, or not released, created, but only given to the large tech companies, now it's literally true that you do have to be a billionaire or work at one of these companies to use the frontier intelligence. And that's a crazy world that I don't really think we want to enter. There's 2 things that kind of mitigate my negative feelings on this and make me feel a little more optimistic. The first one is competition. I think as long as there's multiple AI labs competing at the frontier, we're in a much better position individually and as a society, because if one provider doesn't want to work with me, fine. There's ChatGPT and Gemini, and they're both basically on par with each other. And generally, competition will make each of them that much more focused on winning my business and satisfying their customers. If we end up in a situation where it's a winner-take-all market and there's one super intelligence company, I think there's no other industry where it would be a more negative outcome to have a monopolist in charge of AI. That would be a very bad outcome, but it doesn't seem like it's likely right now, at least. The other is open source. As long as there's really powerful open source models, we're in a much healthier ecosystem. Like the new Gemma 4 models were just released recently. I had them on my MacBook Pro. I can run them locally, privately, without any permissions. They're not frontier level, but they're very capable. And if I did need to run frontier level models without any of the big providers, there's Kimi and other similar Quen models that are very powerful. I could spin those up on my private servers with no one's permission and everything would be fine. So as long as we have open source at or near the frontier, I think we'll be in a much better place. But that's not really realistic for most people. Like, this isn't a discussion about me. I'm an engineer. I can find workarounds. And in fact, since I got banned by Claude, I have found a way to get access to Claude again. And I won't go into details how, but I have a Claude account and it's working fine. And if I needed to, I could spin up my own infrastructure. But most people aren't going to do that. And this is about providing open access to everyone who maybe they get banned by ChatGPT. They can't open the app and that's it. They can't use this intelligence anymore. And I think that is the type of outcome that would be very detrimental for all of us, for society. And I think that's what we need to think more seriously about how to avoid. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and I'd be curious to hear what you think, because if I had watched this like a month ago, I would be like, oh yeah, whatever, that guy probably did something stupid to get banned, and I wouldn't do that. This could never happen to me, until it did. And then it kind of brought all these thoughts to the forefront about how we need to do a better job as a society, and certainly our lawmakers, of taking the myriad challenges and problems posed by AI more seriously, because I don't think any of us want to live in a scenario where the AI-pilled tech bros of Silicon Valley control our entire society. Probably not the best outcome. And I'll leave you with one parting thought, which all of this has kind of brought to the front of my mind lately. I wonder more and more whether these frontier AI labs, as they call themselves, are all just going to go supernova and implode under their own weight sooner rather than later. They've grown so quickly with so much money and so little oversight and such little regard for normal economic forces like supply and demand and customer satisfaction, that we're starting to see a lot of cracks that we never would have imagined. There's a lot of unforced errors, and they seem to be becoming their own worst enemies. Anthropic, just in the last month or two, has gotten themselves designated a supply chain risk by the US government, which is a whole other story. They've leaked the source code to their most popular application. They've leaked all their pre-release files. Most of what they build is really janky. And worst of all, they banned me from their platform. OpenAI, on the other hand, is, well, everything that OpenAI is. And don't get me wrong, because I do not hope for this outcome. Remember, I think competition in this space is vital for all of us, for our success as a society, and for the future of AI. And if all of these other labs fold, really there's only going to be one player left to pick up all the pieces and dominate not just AI, but all of society. And you know who I'm talking about. And I think that would be the worst possible outcome for society. But otherwise, I think that's enough positivity for one day. We can leave it there for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Unless I get banned by YouTube before then.